Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. This is episode 6 already. Oh my gosh. It feels like I've been doing this both for only hours and also for years. So thank you for spending another Tuesday night talking about some tech stuff with me and my wonderful guest this evening. If you would like to comment, interact with us, make sure StreamYard can use your name by going to streamyard.com/Facebook. I promise you want to give Savannah all of the praise that she deserves. Crazy compliments, anything you want. If you have questions for her, anything, we want to see it down below. Also, we want to make sure that you like and subscribe and follow Farmers Alley Theater, because they're the ones who let me interview all of these incredible people and also spend Tuesday night in a video chat with my incredibly talented best friend. So like, that's pretty sweet, right? Yeah, you should definitely give them a like. So without further ado, here is a incredibly talented at everything, props designer, scenic artist, stage manager, production coordinator. I have gushing things to say about her. So everyone please say hello to Savannah Draper.
It's an honor to be nominated.
Yes, this is an awards ceremony this evening, folks. I don't know if you read the description, but this award doesn't actually exist, but it's highly coveted. It's what I'm referring to as the Slashie Award, because, like I said, she is props designer slash this direction. Forget, my camera's flipped. Props designer slash scenic artist slash stage manager slash production coordinator slash. Oh, hi, Adam.
Hi, Adam. I miss you.
So, Savannah, how did you get involved with Farmers Alley?
Well, it's your fault.
That makes it sound like a bad thing.
Right. So I first got started because I believe you had contacted me to run a follow spot for you. I don't know, you had something better to do with your life that night or whatever. I don't know.
I think I was going to a wedding.
Sort of better, I guess. But yeah, I started subbing follow spots for you while I was working on my internship. And then I was out at my summer stock doing props. And I remember, I don't know if you called or texted me and you're like, I'm giving you Jeremy Koch is getting your number because they need props people. So if he calls, answer. And when I got home from Pennsylvania, I just started working, and it's been like 3 years now and it hasn't stopped. It's all your fault.
Oh, well, I'm happy to take the blame for that one then. Thanks.
I mean, I'm happy to give it to you, but thank you, actually. Thank you.
Well, look, if you weren't so good at your job, I would not have made that connection. So I want to start off talking about props.
Okay.
Since you started working props for Farmers Alley, or just in general, what is like the hardest, coolest, like the most fun prop that you've helped build or built yourself? What are your favorites?
So I mean, is it cliche to say everything that I build is my favorite? That's cliche. I'm not going to do that.
I mean, they're cliches for a reason, right?
That's true. I would have to say some of my standouts or like highlights in my head would be for our production of Curious Incident, the dead dog that you see, Wellington Argyle the Third. Steve,
yes, Steve.
That's gonna be my claim to fame. Like, that'll be on my tombstone when I pass away. Is just Wellington. But yeah, he was basically a life-size German Shepherd stuffed animal that I gutted, rebuilt his paws to be more realistic, stuck a pitchfork in him, covered him in blood, and Yeah, that poor thing. A couple other funs. It's the dog. It really is.
It's the dog.
A couple of the really fun ones that actually weren't Farmer's Alley. When I was in Millbrook, which is my summer stock in Pennsylvania, we did Seussical the Musical. And I had to build all these different, they were Life's or like oversized Dr. Seuss books with the original covers on the front. And then when you opened them up, they had these neon fish that with the right lighting cue were they glowed in the black light.
That's awesome.
So, and then the big one that started the show actually it was like 3 feet tall of Cat in the Hat. And when you opened it, this 3 foot tall Cat in the Hat popped up to start the show.
A giant pop-up book?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and they were made out of canvas, and my intern and I drew on them and painted them. And so that was a super interesting one. And then I would have to say the Olafs. I've had to do a couple different Olafs now. One of them with the Civic turned out to be essentially like a big wearable puppet. So it was as big as the kid that wore it. And then the other one I did for What to Do, he's actually here in the studio.
You brought your own special guest?
I did. Hi, Carrie.
Oh my gosh. That looks so cool. Oh, I love the carrot nose and everything and the giant tooth. Oh, that looks so good.
So yeah, he's kind of a refurbished stuffed animal that I was able to, I gut stuffed animals for a living is really what I do. So I made his arms movable. He's actually wearable. He's got a thing that goes around the actor's neck to support him. He's thick, 2 C's. So, but made his mouth so he could articulate when he talks. And so those are kind of, I don't know, those are some of the the highlights that stand out to me. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
Can you stop hijacking my feed?
Olaf gives warm hugs.
He does. I may or may not snuggle with him at night just because we're in quarantine and we're lonely. So
I mean, when you've got a friend like that right there,
right?
Olaf is thick, yes, Jeremy.
So yeah, I think those are, and it's every theater I work at always does. It's so different. So it's.
And every show is different. Well, and when you do the same show multiple times, you get to try out different things, right? Because directors don't always want the same prop done the exact same way.
Exactly. I mean, like with the 2 Frozens with Civic and What to Do. So Sven, the reindeer, was also kind of a big life-size puppet. Mm-hmm. And so his head was made out of foam, and it was attached to like a hard hat. And my job on him was to bring him home and paint all the fur detail on his face and everything like that. But whereas like What to Do, they decided to go a costume route. Mm-hmm. So, when you do a show multiple times, it's constantly changing.
That's awesome. Because
they were super fun.
You get to figure out how to solve the same problems in different ways. Like it just.
Exactly.
It's such a creative outlet when you repeat a show, or it can be.
It can be. There is also something to be said for being like, oh, I've already done that. I own it. Great. I don't have to worry about it. So there is that. I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm lazy, but sometimes less work is better.
So do you have any good stories about anything? Any super fun build processes, any things that broke mid-show or?
I want to preface this with I don't remember anything breaking mid-show because everything I build doesn't break. That's how that works, right? Mm-hmm. That's actually a total lie.
Good at your job that nothing ever breaks.
That's a total lie. I think I actually block out the moments when something breaks on stage because I instantly, if I'm watching it, go into sheer panic mode. Like, oh God, do I have a backup? Did I make a backup of that? How can I fix that? And stuff that I think might break, I actually try to make more of. Mm-hmm. Like the producers, the champagne glasses that those girls tap danced around and stuff. I think we needed a dozen and I made 2 dozen. just because they would get dropped backstage and they crack and stuff like that. So I'm like, can't be without one.
Right.
But I'm trying to think of like fun stories and builds and stuff like that. I guess one of my favorite ones is actually working with Stacy at the Civic, doing surfboards. So we actually, she did most of the work, so I'm not taking all the credit here. But instead of us buying and, kind of breaking the bank, fully done surfboards, we bought the fiberglass, like frames of surfboards, and we had to use the epoxy and, spread that out, sand it out, put more fiberglass on it, paint it, epoxy. I mean, it's such a weird process to be like, I helped make a surfboard.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend using them in like the ocean, but
You never know. You never know.
They look cool.
I think one of my favorites, besides Curious Incident, of course, that show was just so cool all around. One of my favorites that I've seen you prop is actually Farmer's Alley's show from December. It's a Wonderful Life, the radio play.
Yeah.
Because it was all Foley, like it all had to be practical, it all had to be period, and it all had to work with Tony, our sound designer at Farmer's Alley, and also the producer of this Tech Tuesday. So, hey, Tony, how's it going? Thanks for being
Tony.
Here. So do you want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, that one was interesting because it was. So it's a radio play. It's a staged radio play. And so the actors are basically in a recording studio and they have to use all these found objects around them to make the noises of, someone flipping through a stack of bills or slamming a door or snow, stuff like that, phone dials and things. And the script did give like a list in the back, like we recommend maybe this to make this noise and stuff like that. But working with Sandy Bremer, the director, we basically went down into prop storage and just started throwing things around and clanking things on things and smashing things into other things. Like, does that sound like a car door? If I close my eyes, maybe it does. And with it being said, I think it was post World War II. I think it was like 46 or something is what it was set in, making sure all of this stuff on stage was what they would have had in 1946 or whatever. So.
Okay, Steve is bringing up the wind machine because I remember this being probably one of the biggest challenges of that show for you.
Yes. So Foley wind machine is essentially, it's a barrel that you crank and it's covered in canvas. And so as the canvas rubs on the wood underneath, it makes a wind sound. Well, I was able to borrow one from Western, but the thing was literally as big as my Foley tables. I mean, it was as big as I am, And so I was able to work with Gunnar and he, exactly.
Steve knows.
Steve knows. He was there. He's like, well, what if we do this? So yeah, Gunnar basically, like, we looked at it and he just pared it down and took this like 5-foot monstrosity and made it into like a cute little like 2-foot one that could just sit on the Foley tables. So now we have 2 wind machines because we still have the giant one.
Speaking of getting to go into prop storage and throw things around, I think we have a little video, like a mini tour of some of our prop storage for everyone to see. So let's see that. So right now we are down in a section of our prop storage. This is one of the more cleaner, organized areas. We moved down in here into about 1,200 square feet of storage. It is packed to the brim. It's literally a catacomb of stuff. It's like your grandma's basement down here. So, but our storage includes, as you can see, dishes and bottles. There's fake food over here. We store all of our furniture, decorative, books, office supplies, cell phones. Any little minute thing that you might see on a stage,
we have it down here. I don't know why I'm holding on to this, but it's funny, so why not?
If I recall, while we were filming that, you had the plunger and you were like waving it around a little bit.
I think I was using it like a conductor's baton. I was so nervous. I'm like, I need something in my hands, and here's a plunger. Why not?
So why does Farmer's Alley, or a theater in general, like, why do we have so much space? Why do we need so much space and so much stuff?
Well, for me, I think it's just a good idea to have, a wider range of things, and especially to keep stuff that is so frequently used, as opposed to buying new every time, or stuff like that. I mean, there's just things that you're going to use all the time: dishware, books, bottles, armchairs. Like, you don't want to go out and get a new one every single time and then have to try to figure out, well, what do I do with it now? So it's just a good idea to keep a stock of these things. It's readily available. You can pull it. Your director's like, oh, I don't want a clear bottle. I want a green bottle. Great. Give me 2 seconds. I can go get that for you. As opposed to like, well, shoot, now I got to go to Meijer and, or whatever.
And find something in a green bottle and then either drink it or dump it, peel the label off.
Exactly. So it's as you do shows, you collect these kind of things, and some shows have very specific pieces. Some shows, if you're doing someone's apartment, like if you were in my apartment, I just need 80 million books, so it's just nice to be able to go somewhere and be like, oh, great, here's a box of books. Like,
yeah. So, and then are there things that Farmer's Alley owns, like any sort of specialty piece that maybe we own that other theaters in the area don't? Because I know that we do a lot of, renting, lending, like sharing stock with other places.
Exactly. And those, again, are usually like the specialty pieces. So if you think like Wellington Argyle III from Curious Incident, we're one of the few theaters that has done that within a certain radius. So with the train that was in that, I mean, the rat cages, like that entire show is just a specialty prop package that I actually have all boxed up, put in a special place. And Wellington's been to Oregon and back, like we've been able to rent him out so many times. Other things would be like the moving box puppets from Avenue Q that, talked and sang and stuff like that. Trying to
Those
think.
are so fun.
They're so fun. We have like a dozen of them down there, and they crack me up every time I walk in there. It's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And like the adding machines from Producers, since they had to be so specific in time period.
Mm-hmm.
I literally drove like a 2-hour radius in Kalamazoo trying to find adding machines from the 40s. So now they're
sort of a percussion instrument in that song too.
Exactly. They all had to be functional.
Unhappy.
Yep. So they all had to be functional or fixable to be functional.
Mm-hmm.
So we could definitely like at least remount that song with how many adding machines we have right now.
If anybody's watching from another theater and you're planning on doing that show, give us a call.
Let me know.
We can hook you up.
So I'm trying to think. Even like we still have the costumes like Soapy Soap and Tickety Talk from Blue's Clues. Those are so specialty items that
mm-hmm.
You want to keep them. You don't want to get rid of them. So you try to hope that you can pass them on to another theater or make someone's life a little easier that way.
Other theaters, if you're looking to do Blue's Clues live, give us a call.
We got you. They even come in their own road cases.
See, what a deal. What a deal. Well, while we're talking about you and props, I wanna brag here for a second. So you out at Millbrook got to prop the regional premiere of Fun Home.
Mm-hmm.
And Pennsylvania, in this area, like this theater just happens to be the home theater of the family of a certain graphic novelist whose work got turned into a musical. And
she's sort of somebody, I think. I mean, I don't know.
She may or may not have come to see the show with her brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And she may or may not have specifically told you how, like, what a great job you did recreating her childhood home. So for those of you who didn't follow that, because I was also just figuring out what to say as I was talking.
I mean, isn't that what we all do right now?
I'm talking about Alison Bechdel, who wrote a graphic novel called Fun Home, which got turned into a musical, which, did it win a Tony?
I think so, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it won a Tony. I don't follow that closely. Don't tell on me.
Right.
So yeah, what was it like to meet Alison Bechdel and to sort of have that interaction with her? How cool was that?
That is probably one of the single coolest experiences of my life. So the fact that my summer stock theater is the theater that her dad was on the board for, her mom was one of the actors, and it's all depicted in the graphic novel. The home that they lived in was turned into an Airbnb that all of the cast and designers got to stay at. But then I sat with that graphic novel and emulated her drawings, to figure out exactly how she drew. So it was on stage. I was able to go into local antique stores and actually find books that were her father's that they had in their home. We had a wonderful scenic designer, Nick, on that, and I got to help him paint it a little bit. But, him and I were able to go into the house and look at the wallpaper and like physically touch it so we could go back and recreate all of that.
That's so cool to be able to do that. Like, that's
right. And she came to see it with her brothers and stuff. And I was in the audience that night because, by the 12th time a show runs, you're like, I don't want to see this anymore, even though it's awesome. But I made sure we all had tickets that night. Like my intern, everyone, we're like, nope, not working tonight, watching the show. None of us watched the show. We watched her. We just sat and watched her. And she's like, it's a summer stock. Like, I know this theater, this isn't millions and millions of dollars on Broadway. And she's like, what you guys were able to pull off, and the fact that I walked in here and knew this is my house. And like the minute details, Mr. Bechdel really liked obelisks. And so I put those like all over in little areas, like, well, like, let's put one there as a set dressing, and like all just and for her to acknowledge it, and to acknowledge our actor at the very end, she took a sketchbook and she literally ripped it every night, ripped pages off of it. So I had to rebuild that every night. But all of those drawings were hand-drawn by me to look like Alison Bechdel's pictures, and they ended up scattered all over the floor every night. And so, like, she picked a few of them up and, like, signed them for the actors and things like that. And she's like,
cool.
Yeah, it was just such it was such a cool experience to have someone that, I studied that art so much to be like, no, you nailed it. So,
you are pretty good at your job, Savannah.
I think so. Sure.
You are.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I've heard you say to me a couple times that you feel like you're really, really good at, and you don't even know how you do it necessarily, is color matching.
I don't know how that happens. I hope my old intern Trinity, and she's not even my intern, I called her my associate. She was just that phenomenal that I worked with at Millbrook. She would get so mad at me because I would literally look at something, grab the paint, go mix it, and I had the color. And she's like, well, how many parts of yellow did you use? I'm like, I don't know. I went like, and it's like I went, I did art classes. I started to go to school for graphic design and art history and stuff like that. And it's like, I understand fundamentally the color wheel. Mm-hmm. It's there. I know how it works. But I don't know. I can literally just look at something and go, oh yeah, so that's got purple and black and white and red and a little bit of green in it.
And it matches.
And it just matches. Like,
that's an amazing skill.
I don't know how I do it, and I'm very pleased with myself that I don't end up with poop brown every time I do it. So.
Look, that what a compliment to your throat. Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Oh, Ron! I've been trying not to watch the comments that pop up because I'm going to go all shiny squirrel and wonder what everyone else is doing.
I mean, people have said some pretty nice things about you. So you
I'll
should...
I'll look at it later when I'm days and less
go back through and respond to all of them.
Exactly.
So when you're painting a show,
mm-hmm.
By the way, if any of you out there, keep the compliments coming, first of all. But if you have any questions for Savannah, let us know down in the comments. Tony will put them up here on the screen for us, and I've been paying attention, even if she hasn't. So we'll get to them. just let us know. So when you're painting a show, how many different colors of paint normally go into a show? Like, how do you?
Oh, wow.
I mean, how do you pick colors? Does the designer give you paint samples from the store and say use this? Or do they send you a reference photo and say, I really like this color scheme, see if we have anything like this in stock, and then go find some stuff?
A little bit of both. And it kind of depends on the designer I'm working with. I've painted a lot of Eric Perry shows. So I think you know this gentleman. He's been very good about, this is the picture of the color that I want. Do we have it? No. Can you find it? Great. So, or I'll go to whoever's available, we'll go to Lowe's and be like, okay, well, here's color swatches in this entire range that we were looking for. Which ones do you want? Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to think, most shows, there's the wall color, which is usually actually a mixture of 2 or 3 colors, which I think we'll talk about later.
I think we will.
Right. There's, molding, floors, depending on what the floors look like, if it's wood or if it's tile, and also depends on the setting too. If it's an realistic interior versus a bright, colorful musical.
Right.
But I would definitely say there's at least 7 colors to every base apartment box set, at least.
Which is so funny because people's homes, they're like, oh, there's a wall color and a trim color.
Exactly. You look at my apartment, everything's white. So,
mm-hmm.
Or I don't know what color this is.
Well, we had a couple of questions pop up here in the comments. Steve wanted to know if there's a show that you haven't been able to prop yet that you really, really want to do.
Oh, I begged to do producers, so that I checked that one off. I really, really, really want to do Sweetie Todd. I think that would be just super fun to do. I don't know if my logistical mind is there for it yet. But I think that would be a very fun project to try to start. So, or to dig my claws into.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be a blast. And I know that's one that Jeremy really wants to do, and Tony really wants to do, and I really want to do.
I'm like, I don't really want to do this. Hint, hint, hint.
See?
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Oh, Jer.
And we had a question from Ron asking about a stage manager story. Do you have any good stage
goodness.
Scary moments or favorite moments, or you're the most proud you've ever been after calling a show?
I think my scariest would be the first show that I ever truly called on a headset. And when I say truly called, I mean not like, you know, out in the park going, hey, you have 10 more pages, don't forget your apron kind of thing, but actually like on the headset calling cues. My first show I ever called was Peter Pan. Mr. Mike Artist decided to trust me and terrorize me and give me Peter Pan as my first show ever of my internship. So I think I lost 20 pounds just of stress in that process. But I mean, it turned out great and it was a wonderful experience, but that terrified me. But honestly, I think my proudest show call is Tommy, the Who's Tommy, that the Civic did in the parish. I never once called from the script. I only called from the conductor's score. And I actually had 2 pencils that I would sit there and drum out the beat, you know, dun 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 dun, and that's the only way I could keep my place to call all the cues.
That's such a huge, like, rock shows are such they're terrifying because there's so many cues, but when you have one of the things that to me makes a good stage manager is a background in music. Because if you can't read music, it makes your job harder. Like if you can't hear when the flutes come in to do this line of music, because that's when this is supposed to happen, because that's when the emotion changes of the piece, or
exactly, key changes, tempo changes. Yeah, I've been playing flute now for, I don't even want to say because it's going to tell you guys how old I am, even though you already know. It's a couple decades of music experience with instruments and stuff. So, naked mole rats.
Oh, speaking of props that you've made that I love.
Oh no!
So, everyone, in case you didn't have the opportunity to see Farmers Alley's production of Naked Mole Rat last year.
Naked.
It's the full title is Naked Mole Rats the Musical, or the rock musical.
The Rock Experience.
The Rock Experience.
It's a Rock Experience,
and it's definitely an experience. It's so fun and it's so funny. But once we get into the second part of the show, there's this character that they go to meet, and his name is Grandpa. And Savannah made the most brilliant portrait of the actor playing Grandpa that we ended up hanging up at the back of, and it was just
like center with a special.
And I got to light that show. And so we literally just had this uplight. Yes, Naked Mole Rat gets dressed, the Rock Experience. Thank you, Jeremy. But yeah, it was beautiful. You should go to Farmers Alley's Facebook page and look for photos of that show because it was so funny. And while you're there, give Farmers Alley a like. Shameless plug.
That portrait.
Oh, it was so good. It was
the actor actually owns it now. He does own it. Good. So I hope
he should.
I hope Nick has it proudly displayed on a wall somewhere, or he throws darts at it. Either one I'm fine with.
So we actually, when we filmed that prop storage video that we showed already, we actually filmed a couple of painting demonstrations. So do we want to start with the wood grain, I think?
Sure.
So Savannah's going to kind of walk us through how she does a couple of the techniques that she uses most. So whenever you're ready, Tony. Thanks.
All righty. So what you're seeing here is I've already based this with a brown, and I'm taking this kind of mustardy color to give an accent. It's just very light, kind of dry brush. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking this horrendous looking chip brush that I've actually chopped up. You can see me explaining it right there. That gives it so there's not distinct lines. Again, dry brush technique so you don't get a lot of paint. And then this gives your dark tones. So if you look at wood, there's light tones, dark tones, mid tones. I tend to drip a lot, which you can see. Always wear paint clothes, folks. So this next technique, I'm taking this lighter shade and I'm just literally gooping it on. And this is a roller, but it's like an anti-stamp. So what it'll do is it'll actually pull that layer of wet paint up and reveal the dark paint underneath it, which gives you the ridges and the knots and things like that. And you can kind of see it. It looks a little bit better when it's dry. You can see the color under it more. So this one I'm doing, it's just a plain brown. And we have these things called rockers that have these little spikes, and they're rubber. And you pull it through and it pulls the paint up. Or if you flip it over, it has the same kind of pattern of like knots and wood and stuff like that. And again, it pulls up that wet layer to reveal the dry layer. So you can kind of see like the knots and stuff in it. This one's a little bit easier. You can see the contrasting colors. So it gives you a wood texture-ish. This one, Lee Buchholz kind of turned me on to. I love Lee. I miss him so much. This is actually just wood stain. So you've got your painted base and then you put wood stain over it. Whereas this, now you've got those 3 or 4 different colors with an additional color on top of it that also gives it a gloss, for more of a hardwood. But, painting wood to look like wood is literally what 90% of my paint job is.
That's exactly it, Jeremy. That's exactly it.
So then here, I would actually use a different brush. I just didn't think about it and bring brushes, but you can actually go back in and paint knots. So you can kind of do the swirls and things like that. There, it doesn't look like much there, but further away with a smaller brush, you can actually get those ridge details in those knots. What you're seeing here is this is Lost in Yonkers, and that roller that I use to pull up the color, with this, I actually did the opposite. So I painted it the light color and then rolled it like a stamper with the dark color on top.
Multi-purpose tools.
Multi-purpose tool. So, and then that's just lined with Sharpie to kind of give the feel of different distinct boards. So it just doesn't look like one big brown mass.
And then, so do you kind of just pick whichever technique is going to work? Like, how do you decide, or is it like?
It depends on the designer. So like the one for Lost in Yonkers, Eric, the designer, he picked out that roller, and that was kind of the look he was going for. So that's what we did. Otherwise, usually what I do is I try to do what's easiest, quickest, and most efficient, which is usually blending a couple browns and then doing the dry brush of the light and the dark over it, and then lining it with a Sharpie on a stick. That usually tends to be quicker. That way I'm not there for 8 hours overnight trying to paint like one section of a floor.
Yeah.
Like the rockers and stuff, I definitely would use more for fine detailing, trim, stuff like that, or even prop stuff,
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That it would be hard to like do a whole floor or whatever with the rocker.
I helped out at Millbrook. One of the scenic designers, me and one of the TDs stayed late and helped her do a parquet floor, which is the alternating, like 1-bys or whatever. And we did it with rockers. And it took 3 of us like 12 hours to do this parquet floor. It was insane.
Speaking of floors that took a lot of time, there are a couple shows that you've done for farmers that have had really, really awesome, time-consuming, kind of intense floors. I think we have a couple of photos that we can show people. One of them is a marble floor from
Over the Rainbow.
Over the Rainbow. Yeah, I was gonna say
Judy Garland show.
The Judy Garland show. And the other one is, yeah, look at that. That's paint. That's not real marble, friends. That is paint. So do you want to tell us just real quick how you do some of that? At least some of the veining, because I've heard you talk about this before, and it's pretty cool how the veining happens.
Yeah, so that one, it's a black base with glitter added to it. Sorry, Lanny Potts. I did ask him beforehand. I did ask him ahead of time if I could do that. But it's an
those lighting designers,
right? It's an additive you can add in that gives it that sparkle that marble has. And then all the different grays and stuff you see are literally like sopping wet sponges and with water and paint, like slapped about in just random patterns. And then the veining is actually, I take a feather and it's very thin, it's very delicate, and just kind of, twitch my hand a little bit. And, it's very sporadic. I also did find when we were doing those paint demos, because I couldn't find a feather, string actually works really, really well too. Dipping string into the paint and dropping it and dragging it. Mm-hmm. That organic-y, not straight lines that you see in marble. So
that's so cool. Well, we have one more paint demo that we want to show everyone. Oh yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Tony. This other floor. Okay. So
yes.
This past winter, we did, It's a Wonderful Life, a radio play, which we talked about a little bit for props. But this paint job, this floor took how many, so many hours?
It was, I want to say it was almost about a 40-hour work week, and I had help. Mm-hmm. So Eric, the designer, came in and helped me do all the layout of the gridding, and was gracious enough to also help me start figuring out, okay, this is gray, this is white. Oh God, did we break the pattern? And then I actually was able to get my friends Sam and Mike to come in, because we had to go back and hand line all of those black lines in between all of those squares. And that floor was not just like the stage floor that you see, that also extended out to the risers that the audience sits on. So it was part of the audience experience as well. So that's not like the 20 by 20 stage that you normally see. That's like the 40 by 40 full space that you see.
Yeah, that's so much work. But it's such a cool effect, right? To have the audience walk in and to sit down at their table, and for the floor that they're sitting on to, can you do that again when we do chess?
Only if I can make really large chess pieces, Jeremy, that we can play like Harry Potter chess.
But yeah, it's a cool experience for the audience to be, feel like they're in the studio.
Exactly.
To be sort of almost on the set with the actors without actually being on the set.
Yeah, and I think that's what Eric was kind of going for, is it's the cabaret setting, so there's the tables and the servers, and you got your cheesecake and stuff. So it's like, how can we make this immersive? Extend the floor.
Yep.
Which at first I was like, oh wow, that sounds awful, but hooray. But when we did it, of course, it turned out stunning. I mean, it
looked so cool.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of
that. So our second paint demo that we wanted to show is your typical wall treatment, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe for a lot of things.
It is, yeah. It's kind of a catch-all for a lot of different. I use it a lot on walls, though, is where I seem to use it the most. So this, a lot of people call it a scumble. There's actually two different types of scumbles. You can do a wet blend scumble, which is what I'm doing here. There's technically two different colors there. I was not smart when I picked my colors. I was thinking what would my designer like, not what is going to show up on camera. So basically I'm taking these two different colors and you haphazardly mix them. You don't want to see patterns. You don't want to see, shapes and things like that. But what it does is it gives the wall more texture, a little bit of color variances and stuff like that. So you're not just staring at a blank, solid, flat wall. Lighting designers tend to prefer to have a couple, different colors that pop. like I said, with this is very typical of what we'd see in the theater for something, you know, like a wall, where you don't want to see the colors too crazily. But for this right here, for visual purposes, you can see I'm taking the two colors, and you see the two distinct colors, but you also see the third color that's being blended.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more visually appealing than staring at a flat white wall, you know, like in someone's apartment or stuff like that.
I mean, people could do this at their house too.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's YouTube videos for literally everything that I do. I mean, they're faux marble, faux wood grain, scumbling. You know, there's the wet scumble, which is what I do, which is the big globs of color and smeared. There's also a dry where you paint everything one solid color, and then you go over it after it's dry.
Okay.
With another color. So YouTube's got them all.
You too can make your house look way more expensive than it actually is.
Exactly.
So I think we have one more video that's actually a little bit of the Lost in Yonkers set, which is the show that we didn't fully get to do, that we didn't get to share with the public before we got shut down for coronavirus.
Miss Rona.
But it's actually still all up in the theater. Exactly, you know, we shot this 2 weeks ago, so This is still what's up in the theater. So Tony, if you want to.
Yeah, so what you see here, you can see all the different colors, like the trims and the wainscoting and stuff like that. But this wall, all these walls it's a 2-color scumble. So it's kind of a yellow and an orange mixed together. All of that floral stuff that you see is actually a giant stencil for wallpaper, as opposed to like hanging real wallpaper, which is a pain in the butt. And then we'll see it again when you get into the corners of this room, because it's a grandma's apartment. You know, grandma didn't have Swiffers, you know, back in 1940s. So in the corners and in areas like right there, you can see I've sponged on a little bit more brown to make it look dirty or a little worn, or, you know, maybe her broom didn't get up that high. So just to kind of give it a lived in look. I mean, grandma was supposed to be living in this apartment for, what was it, like 60 years or something like that? Mm-hmm. I mean, anyone living in one place is. So what is a scumble? So a scumble, David, is basically when you take multiple different colors and blend them together, but without fully blending them together. So you get like 2 or 3 different colors, and you see every single one of the colors and then the mixture of all the colors.
Got to have that texture and that definition.
Yep. Gives a little texture, something a little more visually appealing than, like I said, flat yellow or whatever color.
So out of all of the many, many things that you do, is there anything you wish more people knew about any of these things?
Oh, gosh. Painting is a double full-time job. It looks so simple, which is why I started doing it. And then I was like, oh, no, why did you do that? I actually really love what I do. And then the other thing is, like, the amount of detail that actually goes into props. I'm going to go back to props. You know, not every props person does this, but I really, really like to have those fine, minute details that maybe the audience isn't always going to see, but like I know they're there. Actor A knows they're there. You know, so like when I do fake food, I put grill marks on it. There's a specific type of glitter that I like to put on that looks like salt. If the show is set, you know, like It's a Wonderful Life is a good example. It was set on, I think, Christmas Eve, 1946 or something like that. Mm-hmm. The newspaper that they had on stage was from Christmas Eve, 1946.
That's so cool.
Like, I love those little details that they make me happy. Mm-hmm. I hope they look good, but and then also, like, there's sometimes where there's such a lack of detail. I'm like, this is literally going to be on stage for 30 seconds, and it just needs to look like a block of money. So it's literally a foam block that I've spray painted green, and it runs across the stage. So, you know, sometimes it's super detailed and other times it's like, yep, okay, great.
That actor just needs something in their hands that looks like money. So
exactly, like literally the actor just needs something of that color in their hand.
All right. Well, there are so many compliments for you.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look back at
in
these
the comments. So many compliments. Yes, exactly, David.
David will love this one. One of my other favorite builds is when David was here for Liberace. We had all these mannequins that I had to dress up with his costumes, but I had to custom make the suit that the chauffeur, I think Scott, wore, Liberace's chauffeur. So I had to custom make and detail this white suit that we bought with like these fine lines of silver braiding and do the hat with glitter and stuff to try to replicate what this real life person would have worn. So that's another one that I'm actually super proud of.
That's
Every
awesome.
time I see it in the costume shop, I'm like, that was so much fun.
That's awesome.
So,
well,
shout out to David Mayoko on that one.
Is there anything else before we sign off? Is there anything else you want to share?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I bought another couple books today. I'm sure you're surprised by that, right? Everyone's surprised by that. No, I mean, I love what I do. I love playing. I love experimenting. And I think that's one of the fun things with props is there's no set, defined, this is how it has to be done. I mean, I will literally go into an antique store or a Walmart and be like, oh, what could I make with that item? Or how could I change that? You know, like, I think that's the fun part. It always keeps you creative and pushing and like, you know, what would that fly swatter turn into? I don't know, but let's play with it. So it's reusing items in an unconventional way.
That's awesome. That's so great. Well, thank you, Savannah, for coming to hang out with me on a Tuesday night and talk about how great you are and tech stuff. And yeah, thank you everyone in the audience for joining us and for showering Savannah with your many compliments that she deserves so much. Please, follow Farmers Alley on social medias, Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think we're at 98 subscribers, really trying to get to that big 100. So we just need 2 of you.
Come on, there's got to be 2 of you out there.
With special thanks to Tony Mitchell, our incredible producer for this. He also filmed and edited those videos that you saw. So if you need any video work yourself, hit him up because he's really great to work with. And yeah, thank you everyone. Please stay safe and wear a mask.
Wear a mask.